is January 2nd, Thursday, and this is the Litchfield Budget Committee. I'll ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know.
All right.
Twice in an hour.
We'll open the floor to public input. All right, hearing none, we'll go into the minutes. So I sent out the amended set of the December 12th minutes. There were a few comments that had gone back and forth to Michelle, and she was kind enough to efficiently update them. So I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at those. So if there's a motion on those.
I will make a motion to approve the December 12th minutes.
I will second that.
Made and seconded. All those in favor of approving the amended minutes of December 12th, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed and those who abstain.
Aye.
We have a full house, 8-1. Excellent. And then the December 19th minutes went out. I'm not sure, did everybody have a chance to take a look at those?
I didn't have a chance to finish yet.
Madam Chair, can I ask that you table those because I need clarification on a motion?
Yes. All right. We'll do those. So looks like not enough people read them anyway, so we will table them for next week. Excellent. All right, it moves us into correspondence. There was a message from a resident. It came through. Ms. Betty Vaughn of Stark Lane. Her comment was she sent the message to the budget committee as a whole. I'm concerned that you are cutting more of the school budget than is pragmatic. The state gave the town money to help with one-time projects, but are you thinking that that money should be used for the budget? The school superintendent and administrator are quite competent and have a better understanding of district needs. Is it possible that you are trying to cut too much? Are you taking into consideration the special education needs and the building maintenance needs? I would love to see the town take advantage of any school building funds for an elementary school. The longer the town waits to build the school, the more it is going to cost. Thank you for your attention to my concerns. Ms. Betty Vaughn, 19 Stark Lane. And then we had a couple of responses in return, and I would ask in the future that we read them here and we respond, because my concern is then we end up with I agree with that point, but I disagree with here, and then we end up with an informal, illegal meeting. So we'll read them into the minutes and we can discuss. So I do appreciate the feedback. My position is that, yes, the state did give the town money to help with projects, but there's two different sets of money, correct? The increase in the state adequacy aid as well as the one-time funds. And adequacy aid will be used to offset on revenue side when we calculate the tax impact. As for the state aid for buildings that are for help address capital improvements or maintenance issues that have been taking a hit in the past several years, and the school has developed a committee to look into a longer-term plan. So it's really not, as I frequently am told, not our purview right now until it comes forward from the school. So, with regards to the whole elementary school comments, that's really, I appreciate the passion for that, but I believe the venue for that would be in front of the school board to encourage them to consider that. This budget committee would take up any proposals and weigh in at that time, but I can't direct you how to.
As well as the capital improvement.
As well as the capital improvement. So again, wonderful feedback. Just, I would encourage another forum to present that. As for special education, I believe anybody who's read the minutes and watched, there have been lengthy discussions and debates. So I do believe that we've considered special education needs and as well as building maintenance needs. So I appreciate the input. I do think that we've considered those. And if there are specific items that somebody's concerned about, please feel free to reach out. We'll be voting on the final budget next week. So that would be a good time to bring those concerns specifically here. So again, thank you. Anybody, please feel free to reach out, email. It'd be great. Thank you. Other correspondence came from, I did get the library information out that people were like, nobody got that. Apparently it was flagged by the server because the town server didn't appreciate the library server. So the emails that I had sent got held up until they were approved. So they had been sent. So you may have 4 different copies of it, the original ones and the ones I resent, unless the recent ones got flagged too. I don't know. Then obviously the minutes and reports. Anything else that? All right, that's correspondence. That brings us to the school district budget, the warrant articles. If there's any information related to your budget that you'd like to update us on, and whether or not we've finished our default budget.
Thank you. Good evening. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
You as well.
So a couple of things for the warrant articles. So the board has not voted yet on the final warrant articles, so we don't have any information for you tonight on those. There is a board meeting next Wednesday, and if they're finalized at that meeting, we'll bring them forward on the 9th so that we can see where that sits. And there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of complications, but we've had a draft out there, but it has not been voted on yet.
All right, so we may end up going to the budget hearing without voting recommendations, I believe.
Okay.
Let's see when we have to have our final votes registered, because if you present them next week, we might be able to, I'll check to see if we're still legal to meet after the budget hearing on the 16th. Because that would be the time when, by bylaws, we'd be allowed to vote for it. Okay.
And I think
We voted on items that after budget hearings.
I just want to make sure that we're kosher with the deadlines and states and stuff, so I'll double check to make sure we're good with that.
Yep, that's helpful. I thought the point of a public hearing was to get input from the public to make final decisions. So to do that afterwards, I think would make some sense, but we'll have it, our plan is to have it to you next week so that you can then take your week to consider it, contemplate it, and then you could vote the following. In terms of updates to proposed budget, our team is still meeting to review the cuts and the impact of the cuts. And so again, on the 9th, we would plan to report back to the budget committee on any concerns that we have that we feel should have action taken on them. So we're not ready to do that tonight, but we'll have that for you next week. And I just wanted to address for a second too, at the last meeting when we had a sort of a reaction to the level of cuts that were being made. I think we heard from a couple of people on the committee, you shouldn't be surprised by this, right? Because we had a meeting with Member Cutter where the methodology was shared with us, the dollar amounts were shared with us. So that's all true. So if you're misreading the emotion, it was not surprise. The emotion was anger over the amount and the depth, right? And so I just want to be really clear. I don't show anger well. I hold it in, and I get a look on my face that you should know is anger. But how would you know that, right? So, but I want you to understand, given the hours and hours and hours that had gone into developing that budget, and granted, it was not a surprise to us. We knew what was happening, but we didn't know how the committee was going to vote. We knew what a proposal was going to be coming from a member, but we didn't know how the committee as a whole was going to land on that. So just the depth of it, it's cut very deep into the budget. And we're concerned about operating with the margins that we have because the realities are we have to deliver those services. And to do that with tight margins is going to, potentially impact other aspects of our program. And that's what I think the budget committee needs to hear, that as the people who day to day try to administer everything and make sure that it all works out, and we see the unknowns, we see this family just moved in, or this situation just occurred. So we know that how to execute that, how to pull that off can be pretty tricky. So that's the emotion that you were seeing and hearing from us. And I just think it's important that you understand, we already think we've developed a pretty responsible budget. It's been gone through by the school board. And so again, if those margins get too tight, too close for us, it's going to really cripple our ability to get some stuff done. So I just want to be clear. It was not surprise that you were seeing or hearing. It was frustration. Anger might be the wrong word, frustration,
Passion.
passion. There you go. Good way to describe it. But at the end, we always do. We'll figure it out. There'll be an impact. There'll be a consequence, but we'll figure it out. And then the last thing is the default budget that you had here on the agenda. Again, the school board has not finalized the default budget number yet. So we have a draft. We've gone back and forth on it. You're familiar with the mechanics of figuring out what the default budget is. And we need to get that right and make sure the board votes on that. So again, we'll have that for you next week.
Okay.
So the one thing I do want to bring forward, and it's not on the agenda, but
That fell under warrant articles, in my opinion, because it was a
All right.
warrant article.
there you go. So we'll pass it out.
The big warrant article next to the budget.
So as this is coming around to you, I just want to mention that we have a couple of folks in the audience with us tonight. So Joyce Wilcox, who is one of the administrative assistants at GMS. Joyce was the chief negotiator for the Litchfield Support Staff Association and did an outstanding job at the table representing the organization and communicating information. So Joyce is here tonight. So if there are questions, Joyce would be happy to answer those. And also Darlene Jimziak, who is she's a food service lead at the middle school, and she is the president of the association. And Darlene also has done a very good job of communicating and keeping us up to date as we work through this. So a reminder to the budget committee that we did not reach an agreement with the support staff last year. And so we came back to the table. You witnessed us, if you remember, I was texting back and forth to the firehouse as the team was finishing up and reaching an agreement. And the details of that agreement are outlined here on this summary sheet. So I just want to go through that with you. And I'm going to start by reminding the budget committee that our schools will not operate without support staff. They will not operate. So if you look at that opening header, this covers our paraprofessionals who are one-on-one with students, who are tutoring students, who are providing support to our most vulnerable population. And so those paraprofessionals go above and beyond every day, making sure that the children who are perhaps underprivileged are getting what they need in the classroom. The administrative assistants who are on the front line, they've turned into not just phone answers, but security personnel. They're looking for everybody who comes through the door to make sure that they are on par with what we want as visitors in our building. So that job has changed significantly over time. Our custodians who are cleaning the buildings, cleaning up messes that we don't like to clean up at home, but then they come to work and they clean them up also because people still get sick at school, right? So those are the kinds of things that our custodians are doing. Our monitors who are making sure that, we're talking everything from making sure that the food service lines operate the way they need to, that the students are being fed, that if a student starts to choke, that there's somebody there who can respond to that. That is not a simple job. I know what it's like sometimes at my kitchen table with 2 kids, and now you're talking about a cafeteria with 100. So it's really a very challenging position. And then our food service employees who are making sure that the food is prepared properly. All of the state requirements are met relative to temperature controls. You see what happens when there's a norovirus outbreak in a restaurant. Now we are running a bunch of restaurants in our school system because we need to make sure we serve the food correctly and up to temperature. On top of that, you've got federal regulations relative to food requirements and dietary needs. It's an incredibly demanding job, and they do it very well every single day. So these are the people that we're talking about. And another thing to keep in mind, unlike our teachers, many of whom live in Litchfield, but not all, most of our support staff live in town. They're your neighbors, right? And so now we're trying to come up with an agreement that's going to be fair to them, is going to keep and retain them, and make sure that they're able to continue to work for our students. So really, this is what the board entered into, was finding an agreement that would work for everybody. And at the same time, it's not we have to be sensitive to the budget committee's requests, to the taxpayers, to make sure that we're hitting the right stride. We have unfilled positions right now, positions that have been unfilled all year because the labor shortage. We're not able to get people in, but we have to be competitive because if somebody can make an hour more in a neighboring district, why would they not do that, right? So we have to find a way to stay competitive, attract and retain quality people, and still be sensitive to the taxpayers. So it's not an easy task when you put all that together. So here's the financial summary for you relative to the Litchfield Support Staff Agreement. In year 1, we're basically offering a 3% step increase to employees. That amounts to a $68,961 cost by the time you take everybody and you move them a step with that 3% increase. Also in year one, if you look down below, we agreed to keep the green HMO plan for one more year. And the Support Staff Association agreed to shift the cost by 0.5%. So the district will be paying 0.5% less toward that green plan, resulting in a savings of $1,440. So the total cost in year one is $67,521. Corey's done the math, and we're estimating that to cost 8 cents per thousand in terms of a tax impact in year one. I got that after, so it's not typed on your form, but that's the 8 cents per thousand is what we believe it'll be. In year two, there's another 3% step increase, which costs $71,567. But there's also a shift in the insurance. So just like the teachers have gone to the yellow plan, all of the employees who are eligible for the health plan will shift to they'll have a choice of either the yellow with choice plan or the yellow without choice plan. If they pick yellow with choice, which is what we predict most people will do, the district will pay 88% of the cost, which is equivalent to the teacher cost share. And if they take the yellow without choice, it'll be a 90% cost share, but they're exposed at a greater burden potentially as an individual. So there's a greater amount that the district picks up. That will result in insurance savings of $27,190. So when you deduct that off the salary increase, you end up with a year two cost of $44,377. And we can't really predict what that will cost in year two because we don't know all the tax factors 2 years out, but it certainly could be said in today's dollars, it's about a nickel, right? About a nickel, eyeballing it. So that gives you some sense of what the agreement is relative to the support staff agreement. So be happy to take questions, or if I miss anything, Corey, chime in. Okay.
Can you just remind us how many people are in this group?
So I think our number is about 100. Is that roughly 110? And the insurance eligible employees is about 17. So that's why the insurance number is, it's not all 110 employees are eligible because you have to be a full-time employee in order to be eligible.
This says tentative agreement on the header. I just want, this has been ratified. And
Yeah, it does say tentative because the board met at 6:30 to ratify this. So this is now a ratified agreement, but when it was typed, it was not. It also says December and it's January, and it's not 19, it's 20. So fast and furious on these things.
Anybody have any questions? Any comments?
the teacher contract was 3 years,
Yes.
or for the support. Why is the support staff 2 years?
So I think the rationale was that at one point the parties were looking at a 3-year deal. But honestly, the concession of switching over to the yellow plan was a major concession by the support staff. And to make that for 2 years out was something that caused some concern. And so in the end, the parties said, look, we'll make that concession and then we'll be back at the table. We can evaluate where it landed and that can factor in the future negotiations. So it's not something that will have a 2-year impact before it can be assessed.
Okay. And when's the last time the support staff was under an agreement?
The current support staff agreement expired in June.
So it's been 1 year.
July 1st of this year,
Yes.
this school year, they are now working without a contract.
Okay. And did these step increases include any back pay?
They do not. Those are, so if this is supported by the voters, this will go into effect on July 1st of next year. And every employee will make one step, but it will not include anything retro. Those are one step going forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's understood. We're not going to hear in 5 years that we need to make up back steps, right?
There's no guarantee about what a future negotiation could bring forward.
Mhm.
But that's the agreement that we reached.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the updated proposed schedule?
All the wage schedules?
Yep.
We do. There are multiple pages because there are multiple lines and so forth, but would you like that emailed?
I would love to have that emailed.
Okay, we'll do
Just
that
to-
because I didn't make copies tonight.
That's fine. Yeah, email would be great.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none.
So I'll email to you and you'll disseminate to the board.
That is lovely.
Perfect. The only other thing, you're done with us?
Unless you have anything else.
I just want to ask, I'm going to leave. So if there's any member input that you have, I'd love to hear that now and not read about it on the news. So I don't know if anybody has anything
This
for
time
the school before we go.
All right, so we'll open the floor to then any comments or questions that Dr. Jetty could address while, or any of the school board members or school members could address while here.
So just to be clear, final voting on the school budget will happen during our next meeting, January 9th.
The budget.
But from a warrant article perspective, will likely
Be the 16th.
be the 16th after the budget hearing
Yes.
presentation. Okay. Is one of the things that's top of mind for me, and we can certainly address it at next week's meeting if it's more appropriate, is I want to open the discussion again amongst this committee about the funds for kindergarten that remain in the current budget, right? And talking about consistency and the same conversations that we've had over the past several weeks. That's something I do want to add back to the agenda, whether it's tonight or next week. It's up to the committee.
Can you remind me which funds?
So there's
remain?
about $25,000 that Madam Chairman made several motions, right, to remove in terms of consistency because we pulled out the kindergarten and recommended it be on a warrant article. So I'm hoping we see one of those as a warrant article, right? There's still funds in the budget related to that, right, that I'd like to remove and add it to the warrant article. The committee voted that down. So currently the budget today, right, is we're recommending the kindergarten teacher be on a warrant article, but
Well,
the
it's
actual,
an additional teacher.
the additional teacher,
Right,
however
however they
you word
word
it,
it.
right? But the classroom and the furniture and the equipment that goes with that is still in the budget.
Got it.
So my only concern with doing that tonight is that members who might be affected, the principal and whatnot, are not here to speak to it. So unless Dr. Jetty and Mr. Isbicki are okay with having a discussion tonight because it could affect warrant article development, or would you prefer to table it till next week when Mr.
Well, so our team will be here next meeting, so I think the opportunity to weigh in there. I'm trying to think from the board angle. We could always we could make a final adjustment on the 16th prior to the budget hearing, or the board could actually vote.
Yep.
We'll figure out a way to in tandem make all this come
I think
through.
there are ways to amend it at the budget hearing, correct, or is that deliberative? I think you
That's
can change-
deliberative. I think
Budget hearings just,
I think you can change a warrant article and then we can vote. We haven't voted on it, and we can vote on changes to warrants that have changed.
once we final
Yeah.
vote, right, if there are changes that
To the
happen
dollar.
after by the respective boards, we would have to
Right.
re-vote.
Right.
Yes.
But if we haven't voted, then we're kosher anyway. So yes. So I would have it. Yeah, I would encourage you guys to start thinking about that. I do think it, in fairness to the school district, it would probably be best to have a conversation with the budget in total next week.
I honestly, and I come back to, there's a relationship trust factor that we have to put into this, because the larger that warrant article gets, the more in jeopardy it becomes, right? So it started off as a position for about 100,000. And as we add more stuff to it, now you're at 120, 130, 140. The larger it gets, the more likely that it could be voted down. But a 9-0 vote recommending it from the budget committee would be very important to help the voters understand the importance of it. And I say that in all seriousness, because it would be more likely to pass the voters, I think, if it had that kind of strong support from the budget committee. And then we would all understand we're just parking those funds for when it's needed, right? So, but if we end up with a 5-4 vote or a 4-5 vote, now we're in deeper trouble because we've cut it out of the budget. We haven't provided for it in a warrant article, and you know darn well that's the year that the Brady Bunch is going to move into town, all with kindergartners, and they're all going to kick that number over. And now where are we going to be, right? So we will have cut it out of the budget. We won't have the warrant article, and then that's when we're going to need it. So it's going to be trickier for us to try to figure that out. So how big do we get the warrant article? We can get it as large as we need to. But again, the strength of the vote from the committee saying this is a rational way to proceed, and we recommend people to do it, that'll be really important.
So just two things from my perspective, because I wasn't here on the 12th for that vote. I am not, as a budget committee member, in favor of having it as a separate warrant article. I think the school district needs the flexibility to add positions as needed based on enrollment. And I don't agree with that at all. So if we reopen that, my vote is going to remain the same. I believe that should be in the budget. The second component is, I guess if the majority of the committee feels that way, I would implore the school district to find other areas where we have cut too deep to try and make that back up. If we feel like this is, as a committee, we feel like the best place that should be on a warrant article, even though I disagree, like we're cutting too deep. I know we're cutting too deep. So tell us where we need to add it back in so that we can do that responsibly to help mitigate some of the concerns that you have.
All right. I appreciate your feedback. I mean, from a logistical point of view, I think it makes sense to encompass all of the costs associated with that. I mean, we could certainly hope for a strong vote, whether that's, I guess we would definition of what is strong. So is it 8-1? Is it 7-2?
Yeah, I'm not sure you'll ever get a 9-0.
No, I can't guarantee a 9-0.
But I'm not going to come here and ask you for a 7-2.
No, I appreciate that, but I'm
Right?
also not going to guarantee. I would hope that the process would. I'm a logical person. I like my numbers, and I would think that the process should be independent of trying to convince people to, that way. If the process is the process, the numbers should be together. Whether I can convince enough people to vote in your favor, I don't know, but it's still the numbers should be grouped together because they're like numbers. So that's my. But I feel you. I understand what you're saying. I understand the fear behind the concern about the catch-22. I get it.
Well,
So-
I also think as we broaden the scope of it, right? So it started off as a kindergarten,
Mhm.
and then it became a staff, and now it's becoming a staff and equipment and supplies, and so it's all of a sudden feeling slushes, and we know that that's not a good thing, right? So the slushier you get, the more complicated it becomes. That's not what we're trying to create here. We had a really specific purpose originally. So I think the school board has to struggle with what do we want to call it? How do we want to label it? And how much do we want to put in there? So
Absolutely.
that's a piece that we need to work with the school board to make sure that they maintain the ability to do what they need to relative to class sizes. So,
Right. No, absolutely. I appreciate that.
so if it's tighter than what we had talked about, that would be some of the rationale too, because the last thing you want it to feel like is a rainy day
Mhm.
fund. That's not what this is. It really is not.
Any other questions or comments relative to any of the school-related items before we say goodnight?
I mean, I think it could be helpful because the two larger reductions that stick out in my mind are the 30,000 to transportation and 20,000 to the supplies line. And I think that the conversation maybe could have been a little more robust in the supplies. And there were some things that I remember trying to pull out of my memory of why to explain the increase. I mean, I will say personally, and people can think what they like, but I understand the consistency of taking out the kindergarten related sums, but it's a bottom line budget. And so, okay, so there's 25-ish there for a classroom we might not need, but I don't agree with taking 20 from supplies. So I'm not going to also agree with an additional amount when I feel that we've already cut what needed to, it's already been reduced. So I would like to be able to make a motion to add some of particularly the supplies money back, but I need some more facts.
I think if you have specific questions, or we can have, there's an opportunity to send the email along to ask them for additional information. So absolutely, if there's certain areas of interest that people would like to have reconsidered, please feel free. I'm sure they'd appreciate being able to be pointed in the direction of which to look. So please feel free to send it along so we have a chance to take a look at it. Any other questions or comments?
Were you talking about pulling out all three of the positions and putting them on warrant articles? The teacher, the third grade teacher, the kindergarten, and the custodian?
No, we pulled out the kindergarten teacher
And para.
And the para.
and para,
Yep.
which actually we already have that money this year. We raised and appropriated that money this year. So our goal would be to ask the taxpayers to take the money that we already have out of the fund balance this year and to park that in the fund. We were not talking about the other new positions. It's just that one. But we've cut it from next year's budget, so we're not raising and appropriating it again.
But I have a hard time supporting any budget that has new or recreated positions in it without the voters voting.
But that's not required for school positions, required school positions.
I'm just saying, I have a hard time with that.
I-
We did it on the town side.
But that's,
fair
there's
to
a
be
difference,
consistent.
there's a difference between, with all due respect to it, there's a difference between getting another plow driver, and getting a third grade teacher when you have too many kids in the classroom. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a legal warrant that's been passed. There's a warrant that has been passed that the school board has the
Right, and
authority
that-
to add positions.
I think right there, we're combining two different items.
We are, and that's what I mean. It's,
Well, no,
the teachers
I
are
think
different than-
There's a whole bunch of items. So the teacher is different. You can make the argument that Bob's making regarding the custodian.
Mhm.
So, I mean, perhaps we should look at the custodian. That's an additional position. There is a warrant article that says all new and expanded positions are supposed to go forward. There's also, like you said, a warrant article that
Separate warrant
states that maintain existing level of service. And so since the current second graders have 5 teachers and assuming the same number of students, the same level of service would dictate a 5th third grade teacher, which would require another position. So that one would be covered in that discussion, but we could make the argument about the custodian being an additional position. So I think that, but instead of lumping in, both are new. They're not really both new, but we could definitely debate the existence of one. So,
And my understanding of the history of the custodian one is that we had that position at one point in time. The building did not get bigger nor smaller. It's exactly the same size building, the same number of square feet. However, because state revenue had been cut, that position was taken as an attrition when somebody left and not replaced. So it was a way to help balance the budget in a tight budget year. And the building has shown the consequences of that. It's showing its age because the staff in that building, who again do a remarkable job on a daily basis, but they're being asked to do a more remarkable job because of the amount of footage that they have to cover. So our belief is that we're simply restoring a cut that was previously made, and it equalizes the amount of work that the staff at the high school will do to the work that is done at LMS and GMS. So it's really it's a staffing thing relative to the size of the plant, and it's the most heavily used building in the fleet because the demands at the high school are just that much greater in the evening and with athletics and so forth. So, so our belief is it's not an additional person. We didn't just decide we need additional. It's really it's restoring the staffing levels to what they once were, kind of like you are with, if there are 90 students in first grade, there will be 90 plus in second grade. And so you follow that with the teacher demand as it goes up.
that's a decision that the school board needs to make from a strategic point of view. Are the taxpayers going to buy that, or are they going to sink the budget because they feel we're trying to do something that they've asked us not to? And that's an argument you're going to have to make and have to consider as you go forward.
Exactly.
So,
And I'm just trying to tell you where I'm sitting. And not that I don't think the positions are important and warranted. I just think that it needs to go to the voters. And I would support them on a warrant article.
So the question is, if we get 130 third graders next year, you're still going to stick with 4 teachers if the voters vote it down? That's a fair question. I'm just saying, there's a ridiculous
That's a
number.
hypothetical.
What third
Hypothetically.
grade teacher are we talking about?
I'm just throwing a grade out there. It doesn't matter which grade, but by
And if you
Bob,
end up with 70, are they going to cut a teacher?
exactly. Well, I would hope that the school board would cut. In my opinion,
I'm just saying.
I'd rather not muddy the waters here. Let's talk specifically about specific concerns.
well,
The third grade teacher, in my opinion, is not what we're discussing.
well,
I mean,
it doesn't matter what grade, but with all due respect, this is a budget committee discussion because if we're voting no against it, no matter how far-fetched it seems, but if we said we were going to put teachers on a ballot and go by, or on a warrant, go by that warrant, if you did go back to I mean, our traditional averages are like 130 students per grade, correct? Like going back 10, 15 years.
They were that large.
Let's just say we get up to 130 kids by a number of kids moving into the new homes in one grade, and they voted it down. That means then we're handcuffed, and we all of a sudden we have 35 kids per class. You just can't do it. So, and that's why the school boards, I think every town reserves the right to do that, if I'm not mistaken. That's not a Litchfield only thing.
Okay, Madam Chair,
I'm just
just
not,
a point of clarification. We voted
Right.
on potentially removing the custodian and it failed. We're just having the same discussion again.
I'm getting confused by the discussion of the additional teacher because I don't know that that's tied to what was being discussed. So, okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to, are there any other questions or comments relative to the school board comments and budget? All right, hearing none. If there are any questions specifically related to areas that we'd like to revisit next week, any questions that have come up, please feel free to pass them along. We'll give them the time and opportunity to dig in, come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should
Thanks,
we
everybody.
email to you, Carrie?
Yes,
and then
please.
you'll-
Can I just throw something out there? If they want to talk about it, isn't this the time and place to talk about it?
We're not talking the same discussion, though.
Why
It's
not?
exactly the same discussion.
They're talking about, he's saying I wouldn't support this or I would or whatever like that. He's giving forum for, because a few people here don't want to talk about it. This is the forum to talk about
Then
it.
let's have
Want
the
to
same
have the same
discussion.
conversation for the third time?
Well, no,
If
it's
they
not,
wanna
I
talk
don't
about
feel
it,
like we're
absolutely.
having the same discussion. We're hung up on an additional third grade teacher. Nobody is talking about
I
cutting
think
a
it's-
teacher.
It doesn't,
Conceptually, it's the
it doesn't matter
same
which teacher
idea.
it is.
But we're talking about providing a fund for an additional teacher. We're not talking ratios or anything at that point. That's a different discussion. We're saying that the third grade teacher is in accordance with the current thing. There is currently, we're not sure if you need an additional kindergarten teacher, even according to the new and improved ratios. It provides a fund to be able to provide that, should you need it.
I know, Carrie, but it's shutting down the dialogue.
We're having two different conversations.
But that's what we're here for in the first place.
Well,
to
then
talk
let's
about
have the same
things.
conversation.
They have been and you shut it down. I guess, I mean, if they want to, I could,
There. Would you like, please come back and we will just,
I haven't left yet.
I'm just saying, if they want to keep going, let them talk.
can we try to focus it in on the same discussion then? We're talking about the possibility of having 130 kids in a third grade teach, and
Terry, just, I don't know if you're not following it, or don't understand what we're talking about. It's a pretty simple discussion. Rob and I think are on the same
go
page.
forth then.
I believe. I don't have anything else to add. I was just trying to show a point why I feel we have the right to do it. I have nothing else to add.
All right.
But you gotta be open instead of just seeing what you want to see and allow the conversation to go.
All right. I apologize then because in my opinion, we were having two different discussions that were passing ships in the wind. So yes, let's have the same discussion, but I don't feel in my opinion, that's not what we were doing.
So let's drop it and move on.
Sorry. Thank you. I think we're done. Unless anybody else wants to vent something.
Back out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, Joyce. Bye, Sloppy Joe. We have a unique brand of humor together.
Guess so.
Alrighty. We'll move into, where are we on this tax cap? Before we start thinking about warrant articles.
Okay, so we can
I believe you guys
approach
met,
this
right?
discussion on,
How would you like to approach the discussion?
I think we should jump right into the tax cap.
Absolutely.
And I'll give the Budget Committee an update of the action that the selectmen just took at about 6:00.
Okay.
To try to put together a complete package that meets the tax cap.
Somebody hit the thing. Somebody go.
Did
Somebody
Rob kick
hit
it
that
again?
wire somewhere.
Rob tends to kick it on his way by.
Send them over there next time.
I don't know which wire it is.
Oh.
Oh, wait a minute. We got something.
John? Can you fix it?
That's all I got.
All right, good enough.
I got broken in the wall, I believe, and never got.
It was just working a
It
moment
was
ago.
working.
It was
It
just
was
working a moment
working.
ago.
I don't know, but I think it's.
You need the magic touch.
Hey.
All right. Tax cap.
So with the action that the board just took this evening, we are under the tax cap, $2,621.
How'd we get there?
So we got there by the big cost item we know is the communication system.
Mhm.
And the last time we met, we were looking at a lease purchase for that system. And I think it was $145,000 a year. We have changed the financing proposal so there'll still be a 5-year lease purchase, but the first payment would be made in 2021. So there'll be no payment made in this year, 2020. The first payment will be made in 2021, just like the way the fire station bond was proposed and financed.
And will there be a schedule on the warrant article that indicates the anticipated tax impact for years 2, 3,
There will.
4, and 5?
There will. So the payment does change because now what you're really doing, instead of a 5-year financing plan, it's 6 years because you're deferring 12 months. So the annual payment would be $151,411. And I have paper copies of the warrant if you.
So the total for the 5 years or 6 years would be?
So the total for the would be $757,055.
Have you updated the Google Doc of the warrant
yeah.
articles to what?
Yep, I have.
Oh, look, there it is. Yes. Okay.
And so then I'll just go right and keep it in order. Article 6 was the human and health services allocations. With that change for the communication, we still did not meet the tax cap. The board just decided that this year, in 2020, they would propose that we raise $15,000 for human and health agencies. Last year, we raised $25,000. In the Dara Pond treatment, we would still maintain a non-lapsing warrant article. We've decreased it from $35,000 to $30,000. We were carrying a $5,000 contingency. With those 3 different actions taken by the board, that got you to the $2,621 below the tax cap. But I know, Carrie, I just want to remind you that you and I both received an email from the library trustees indicating that they wanted the budget committee to
Yep. I have that in my notes.
reconsider their allocation.
As well as the conservation committee wanted.
And I think you still have the conservation question out there.
So the library had requested an additional, let me do the math for me. They wanted,
The changes to the health insurance.
Yeah, it was the
Yes.
health insurance,
So
because
is
of the
this
health
yours?
insurance prices.
is this yours?
This is mine.
Yeah. What do we currently have in there for the library?
For library.
Yeah.
265,587.
All right, so they're proposing
And they're looking at, from what I saw on their spreadsheet, $1,296 increase. Should bring it to 266,883.
yes. I agree with that number. And that's related to the insurance buyout because they'd used an old 2 years
Used
ago, 2018.
an 18 or a 19 rate.
So they would like us to add 1246 to theirs, and then the conservation committee asked us to look at, was it the additional 2,000 that we removed, to reconsider the 2,000? And sent a list of items totaling 962, but stating it does not include the repairs to existing equipment. I believe you guys, I attempted to send them anyway. I know that the library one got hung up on the server. as spam before I somehow managed to release it. And then, but I believe the Conservation Committee one went through.
Yeah.
So you should have those.
Yeah.
So, and you said we are how far into the tax cap?
What's that?
1,500? All right, so are there any questions on the warrant articles that were submitted that were sent out and distributed?
So with that, right, if we add, just hypothetically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
if we add the 2,000 back for the Conservation Commission,
Mhm.
right? And in addition to that,
1246.
1246 to the library will be over the tax cap.
Right, we can't add those items. Well, we could add potentially one of them.
I'm just making sure we're all aligned.
And that's assuming that we approve all of the warrant articles too, right? There might not be, so
Correct.
may or may not, so we don't know what's there.
So, just on Article 4, and I guess we probably have set this precedent previously. It's just, it's not, it's gonna, if it passes, the taxpayers don't see an impact this year, but they see an impact for the next 5 years. And I don't want to go as far as saying like, it's kind of just like a shell game, but it feels a little bit that way.
It feels sneaky. I mean, it's not, not to be rude or anything like that, but it's like you're getting somebody to vote yes on something because you're saying there's no tax impact, and you're getting the budget committee to vote for it because we can't vote for it if it's over the tax cap. So you're saying there's no tax impact, so we can vote, we approve, we vote for it, but if it should be in this year's budget. So you're saying.
What we're seeking, what we're doing is, and we're not trying to be sneaky, the warrant article's written and shows, it fully discloses the cost in each fiscal year.
And it does say in arrears.
And we're seeking voter approval to proceed forward with financing this project. It's nothing,
We couldn't approve.
It's not-
it. Like, we couldn't say yes to it because it would be, if
You-
it was
you
in this
could
year, it
have.
would be over the tax.
budget
cap.
committee could have. You would have to find
Right?
reductions in other parts of the budget
If we
to meet the tax cap.
But by saying there's no money for this year, that kind of slides it in there, so we could approve it. I don't know. I don't like. the
So
way that's
I,
done.
one way I don't know if it's possible, but I would like, when it says the 2020 zero, 2021, is there a way to estimate it in today's tax dollars, what the rate would be? So like at the end, like, because otherwise the concern would be, okay, it doesn't cost us anything. What do you mean it's going to cost me 10 cents next year or 15, 20 cents next year? That's not what I signed on for. But if we clearly delineate, even if it's estimated to the best of our ability based on 2020 numbers, understanding that we're projecting out up to 6 years,
You
in
could-
today's dollars, this is how much it could cost.
Yeah, what you're saying is looking to disclose the tax impact underneath each year
Mhm.
based on today's assessed values.
Mhm.
We could easily add another line in that table
Mhm.
and showing that. So, 2020 would be a zero and 2021 would be about 16, 17 cents.
I guess the only, I don't have much to add here because I'm appointed by the school board, but I guess the only thing I'd say, Brian, is from what they said, this is how the fire department was done. And then I guess you'd say in the age of a tax cap, this is the epitome of what the voters should decide on. Let the voters decide,
Sure.
if
And
they like it or not.
I mean,
I hate to say it, but
it just seems like you're sliding it in.
but I think they're showing it there. It's not.
So this isn't, I can't debate what the actions of the board of selectmen to choose the financing arrangements are, right? That's not for us to debate. This is
Right.
what they've chosen. And now we as a committee need to decide whether we agree with it or not.
Right,
If you
but we
don't,
talk-
then you vote no.
But we talk all the time about the long-term impact of decisions. And
Absolutely.
so this is like a really good example of if this committee supports this, we're supporting this over the course of the next 5 years and basically just adding that into the budget, and it will automatically be added and not considered into next year's tax cap. It will just be there.
Correct.
And so I don't know that the general public understands that concept as much as they probably should. And so that's what by the way, I support this actually equipment being purchased. I get it. I just wish that it would have been done maybe over a longer time period and incorporated some of the payment into the first year. So other cuts would have been made in other places. I don't know if that makes sense.
We did look at stretching the term of the lease financing out. We went up to a 10-year term. And to be honest with you, there's a couple different things that the board didn't like about doing that. One, we didn't like paying the extra cost of interest.
Right. I get
And
that.
two, we're aware on the town side that we're looking at some capital needs in the near future. And the more we take on debt and the more we stretch it out, it's going to cause more financial implications down the road. So
And
this is it was the best thing that we could come up with to try to finance a project like this, at this, $700,000 project. We have no capital reserve available to tap into. We really can't use our unassigned fund balance to help reduce the cost.
is there a reason for that?
Well, we're at the articles that you have this year, we're using $200,000 to fund like 4 articles. And that use of that, the unassigned fund balance to fund those is going to be probably one of the highest amounts we've used in previous years. And we have to be very careful that, if we take 200,000 out this year, that we have 200,000 that rolls in next year. We don't really want to lose the equity that we have in the fund.
But then we're doing that several more times. You all are doing that several more times on current articles as
Right.
well.
And I've explained to the Board of Selectmen, I think I mentioned it to you, I really don't see us using the unassigned fund balance as much next year as we have this year.
Was there a financial difference between what was presented to us last week with the 5 years versus how much we're going to end up paying?
In interest,
Yes.
it's about 20,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think when it
So
was
it's
spread out
20,000 's
over
worth our
10
vote.
years, it was like an additional 70,000, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Did the 10-year, which is why we didn't want to do it, because it's $70,000 extra. And,
Right.
if we start looking at what the town's going to need down the road and the school's going to need down the road, I mean, we have to try to get our budget in line so that, other people can get their needs. Okay. If that makes any sense.
It makes sense why we wouldn't want to extend it into, like, say, a 10-year.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good conversation at the previous Board of Selectmen meeting. Obviously, not having been able to see what just transpired earlier today, pushing it out a year, it seems you're saying the $20,000 of taxpayer money is worth our vote. Because we're paying 20,000 more to push it out a year because potentially wanting us to be able to vote for it if we support it. But so you're saying $20,000 of taxpayer money is worth us being able to have the opportunity to vote.
I think really what the Board of Selectmen, the action they took was that they operate under a tax cap. They wanted to put together a financial package for fiscal year 2020 that met the tax cap.
Okay.
And that's what they've done.
Okay.
And tax cap is an annual event. It's not 2021, 2022. The tax cap restricts no more extra taxes, no more than $175,000 over the previous year. And we've put together a package here that meets the tax cap and meets the capital needs and the budgetary needs of the town.
If people feel passionately that it should be in the budget, one option would be to try to, if there's a vote to suspend the tax cap at deliberative and then adding this money back in, or could we still not vote yes? I'm saying in favor of it. I'm saying playing chess here. What are some other options?
You would have to have a warrant article to,
I don't know.
I thought it was a vote at deliberative could suspend.
you'd have to have a warrant article to be able to act on
Right.
increasing the tax cap or eliminating tax cap.
So
Oh, no, I
It's
thought.
one of the challenges of a tax cap in general. I mean,
Yes.
because you have something that you need, but we
Can't.
are bound by that tax cap. So
I mean, we've talked about
The voters are not.
they're not.
right.
But the danger of the town putting this forward and us not approving it is many people look at this board's recommendation as their guiding light for whether or not they vote. So it's a total
I got you. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
So we've talked about, you know, kind of the needs of the town and how the importance of the new communication equipment and aligning all the various facilities that we have, et cetera, under the new communications plan. Just remind me one more time, right? Why this isn't a point of discussion and a point of decisioning for the capital improvement planning committee, which is forming in January, this month, I guess, right?
And I think that's why, because at the last meeting, you had a lot of questions about the communication project and what the compatibility with the existing equipment and what equipment would be needed to be purchased. So I've asked Mr. Brunel to be here this evening to give you, a good summary of the project again, and to answer any of the technical questions that you have. So with that, John.
It's over to you.
So to answer that question, the project's been around for about 4 or 5 years and trying to get the departments together to come up with the requirements. It has been part of the CIP in the past. But it's usually been department by department versus the overall town project. So it's been there. It's just never been really focused on. And I think Kerry challenged me last year, the year before. What is it going to cost? We keep on talking about this. What are we going to cost? It took us 2 years to put the numbers together because there were a lot of competing requirements, and at that point, departments were working independently, right, doing their own systems, and it didn't make sense because it was multiplied by 3. This allows us, this project at least gets cost down as a joint system and not have individual systems. So it's been there. It's just, again, I don't think the CIP has been very well advertised, and there's been many attacks at trying to create a fund to do it, and it's just not been successful for all various reasons, right? So
if that committee is forming this month, is there a danger to waiting until that committee makes its recommendations and including this in that for next year?
yes. So going back to, if you've watched any of the presentations I've given to the Board of Selectmen, the current system is 3 individual systems, the 2 of which are part of our public safety, police and fire. Those systems are 20 and 22 years old. The manufacturer makes no parts for them anymore. I've spent last 4 years in the winter in towers and buildings trying to get things to work because we're stripping parts out of old machines and they don't work. The vendor has advised us that we can no longer guarantee that we'll bring the system back online. So it's becoming critical, right? There's no way to Band-Aid it either. The infrastructure is that old, and there's nothing we can do there. It would cost us more in the long run if we try to Band-Aid each individual system separately. This year alone, just to keep it up, we had to put in about 10 grand in just basic repairs just to keep it functional. It's still not 100% functional. Pretty much every weekend I have to do something to make something work correctly because it's stopped working. So there's a huge risk. The other thing is the timeline. So the project takes 9 months to do. We've already got a little bit of head start. That's 3 months of planning. So we're looking from the time we get voters' approval, we're looking at 6 to 7 months before we have an operational system. So we're looking at fall to winter before we actually place it. During that whole time period, the system's at risk. We have, we look at the 3 departments that we're talking about covering in addition to bringing the school onto the system too. Our highway department has no communications when they're on the road for the most part. It's very short range. They have old equipment, non-functional. The police and fire, they have great radios and stuff that are in the cars, but the stuff that carries it, sort of the connectors to them all, those are all where the failures are. We have lots of communications holes in the town where officers can't reach other officers or firefighters can't talk to other firefighters. Example example would be in the school system. If the fire department's in the school, they can see each other, they can't communicate with the radio. Those are things we're trying to solve with the system. It's something that's been needed for quite a while. So going back, there's a huge risk. If we don't do nothing this year and get this project kicked off, we could have a failure and it would force us to come up with money somehow, some other way without planning for it. And if that's the case, to spin a vendor around and do all that work, that's going to take a long time. So we could be severely impacted.
Thank you.
And just as a reference too, when we were talking in the past, we were looking at anywhere between $1.5 million, $2 million for a system. To get it to where it is today and fix a lot of the problems we have, that's been, that's the department heads all working together, agreeing on commonality and stuff. So I think we're at a good spot now to kind of go forward and get to the funding.
And just in terms of scalability, right? I know that's one of the things that we were talking about at our last committee meeting. you know, in the event that we do get a new police station down the road, a new school, whatever it might be, right? How scalable is the system over the next 15, 20 years?
So, system is modular, so it's built upon, but even with the new police stations, for example, there's no infrastructure that is required to support that system. What they have here today just moves into that location. The system that's being built is predominantly housed in Colonial Drive potentially at the water tower. That's our main site. And then we have 3 other remote sites, which is currently targeting Campbell, the old town hall, and Morgan, which is the Mount Golf Course, where our current systems are today. And everything is connected through a network connection. So there's no impact there. There was another question, I think, was about the current gear that's being purchased today. Does that sit? That's all current gear that all works well in the system today too. So those are we call the subscribers. So things that the folks are using to talk, those are all interchangeable and will work fine. The only investment we have in the system for so-called subscribers, basically mobile and portable, is in DBW. They have a role in the log system that they want. That's where that's embedded based in this budget.
And John, I don't know if you recall, but some of this project, a good portion of this project, was it included in the fire station bond? The original, there was a tower or
So
some
there was a-
part of this project was included in the original bond, which was then reduced.
Correct.
Is that
So
correct?
originally the fire station, when the fire station was being proposed, they were going to stand up their current system the way it was today and relocate it. That system still sits at the old fire station, has to get relocated at some point in time. That was, I think he was carrying around 126,000 or something like that for a tower and all the gear to be moved. The risk there in that budget, there was no funding for the transmitter. And that's what, if I pull that transmitter up today and carry it up to here, I'm not sure it's gonna work. So that's a risk there. But yeah, there was some funding that was carried in for that. And that's what really kicked off we gotta get serious about putting this project together. We can't continue doing it separately. It's too costly.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so.
I-
Shall we start with one?
The only thing I would say is it worries me a whole lot that police officers can't communicate somewhere in town. I mean, that's, it just,
My concern is that they can't communicate within the schools.
well, wherever they are, just the
I mean,
fact
that's huge.
two police officers can't communicate if they need to.
They need to be able to talk to each other.
So we hit the big one, so let's go on more, let's start with 3 and talk through them, and then we can go back to the budget, so we can, if there's any questions. The full-time highway employee, Article 3, because 2 is the budget itself. 3, are there any questions related to that you'd like to consider before we start voting later? 4. Because my concern is the votes on these may impact the other votes, so let's hash it out. Let's get some of the things together because how we vote here will likely have an impact on the other one. Article 5.
So
Are there any questions relative to these that we can talk about before we get into final voting?
about how they're presented
Or
or,
just questions about them, questions on concerns about cost impact, anything you'd like to speak to relative to Article
again,
3?
like I guess I pretty much made it. I don't think the cost should be deferred. I think you want the thing, and I'm not saying it's not needed. Obviously it is.
Yep.
But it should be presented the way it originally was, where 2021, it was 151,411. There's, just like anybody out there, every house has a budget, so, and what they can spend. Maybe get rid of something like the Dara Pond treatment if you can't, to offset the cost towards the tax cap. Pick, what is the priority? If this communications tower is a priority, then put the money towards that and maybe hold off on some of these other warrant articles. But giving this as a zero tax impact this year just to slide it into this budget, I don't think is right.
Do you have $151,411 worth of area of reduction that you'd like to consider? Because we can do that as we go through the budget later. When we do the budget, if he wanted to, well, no, but it would change it would open up the,
You can't do that I mean, we could cut $151,000 from
And
the
then we
budget,
would say,
but
oh,
they would
that
have to.
That would not change the Board of Selectmen's decision.
Correct.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen has chosen this.
I understand that. Kind of open for discussion.
I think it's a fair point, though, that there are a lot of, it's hard to know, if this is such the priority, why is it being presented at the same time as a lot of other, okay, so it's down to 30 for the milfoil, 25 for the paint for town hall, like that stuff adds up. And that it can be difficult to understand if it is such a priority.
Those don't affect the tax impact. When they pull it out of fund balance, it's not providing you with the offset that would allow you to vote yes on this.
So
Bear Pond and.
Right, that one is, but some of the other ones aren't. The town hall paint doesn't have.
I'm just saying how it's
Right.
presented in the
Couldn't-
financial.
the town could take some of these other items that are on here from the unassigned fund and use the unassigned funds for the first year of the payment. I think universally, we all agree this is needed. I think there are some questions for some of us, myself included, as to how it got here.
Okay. So we can clearly we'll have some time, we'll circle around to Article 4, but let's see if there's any other ones that spark as much interest. Article 5, the expendable trust fund for the library. Article 6, human services and health agencies.
So I'm just curious, again, because I didn't unfortunately have the benefit of seeing the select board. Any way to get a brief, the rationale
For that
of,
number.
of taking 10 from Article 6?
Well, that is where it was, right? Before.
It was to meet the tax cap, strictly to meet the tax cap. So it was, last year was the first time that the town raised $25,000. A committee was formed, determined that plus or minus $15,000 was needed they recommended to fund certain agencies, meaning that some agencies were not going to receive funding. So the Board of Selectmen encumbered all of the $25,000 because it was raised specifically for that purpose. So we have funds available from 2019, and we simply took a look at this and said, well, we'll reduce the 25 to 15 because we know we have funds that are encumbered. And
So if 15 is the appropriate number-ish, and we have 10 left over from last year, could this not be 5,000?
it, we received over $30,000 worth of requests in 2019. The town has been all over the board in its funding. Just a couple of years ago, the most that we raised was $2,200. I don't know what the appropriate level is. I think I sat on that committee this year. I think $15,000 is an appropriate amount to fund for direct funding of agencies that provide direct assistance to our citizens in town.
So we awarded 15 last year.
You rate the town.
Raised 25.
Raised 25. The committee recommended to the Board of Selectmen that we spend 15,000 of that.
So where's that extra 10?
The extra 10 was encumbered and it'll be going forward into 2020.
General fund?
No, specifically for this effort.
Right. So my question would be then, could this not be $5,000 if you're using the 10 to bring it to 15?
No, that wasn't the thought process. The thought process was, they still want to wait. They still want to revisit the 2019 appropriations. There's some groups that we'd like to meet with. We've just haven't had the opportunity to meet with them.
Okay. Are there any other questions relative to Article 6? Okay, Article 7. Any questions for that one?
Yeah, this is pretty much going to go year after year after year, right? Because once you start this process,
When you start this process, I think that the intent here is to revisit every single year. You'll see a lot of our capital improvement funds, if we try to maintain a certain balance. And so whether it's 25,000 or 50,000, so some of the articles here at the end, you'll see us trying to restore that money. I think it's going to be based on the actual expenditures, the articles, the number of articles we have. I think would be a good practice to maintain $10,000 balance. So if we spent $3,000 in 2020, do we come back and ask to reappropriate another 3,000 to the fund? We may hold off 1 year and come back every other year, try to get it back to 10 grand.
So how much is it going to cost to actually, because you're asking for 30 grand for this warrant article.
We're on 7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, you jumped,
I thought you were on
you're
Darrell.
talking Darapon now.
No,
Okay.
we're the general assistance one.
My bad.
So one question I would have for you is there's currently 5,000 in the budget, correct, for this line item? Is there a way to say if this passes, we take that 5,000 and use it to fund, kind of like a matching fund? We'll take the 5
we
from the
didn't-
budget and 5 from the taxpayers and then,
I think we left the funding at, you're right, 5 or 4,000 was
was
vendor
4.
payments.
because my hope would be that in establishing this
4.
fund, that one gets reduced to,
So $4,000 is in the operating budget.
Mhm.
And we discussed leaving that 4,000 there in case this article doesn't pass.
Right.
So if the budget passes, this article passes, we actually start the year off with $14,000.
right. So my question is, could we word the warrant article such that we pull the 4,000 out? If this passes, it's offset by the reduction of you can't do that? $4,000?
No, because this is not a real traditional New England town meeting. You could, if you were right there on the floor
Okay.
making motions, but this is a ballot vote.
Okay.
We could vote to remove the 4,000 and then vote the warrant article.
Then we're hoping, but this then puts us in the position that some other members are concerned about, that if this fails and we've removed it from the budget, then somebody comes in and says, I need help with my rent for 3 months.
We have to pay.
That's the risk.
No, I understand. I think that part of being in these positions are to make those decisions and then go advocate for like, if this is that critical, then we should be out there pounding the pavement saying, I need you to vote for this warrant article and this is why. Advocate for the ones. I do agree with that. But I also understand the concern of what if? That's why my thought was if we could tie them together, then we accomplish both goals of getting you funding regardless of whether it passes or fails, because we would fund the 10 with some of the 4. But apparently I can't do that.
Yeah, well, the traditional town meetings, that's often done.
Any other questions relative to Article 7? Article 8? There you go.
Okay, well, you kind of already said that. So is it going to be?
I understand your question. So the $30,000 represents what we believe the cost will be for the next 3 years. After year 3, each year you'll do an assessment of how effective the first year's treatment was and the second year treatment. I can't tell you whether this cost is going to go away or not. My professional opinion is that once you invest money in treating this pond, you're going to want to try to maintain
It'll be
it.
an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Now, and the other thing is, you're saying this is for the plants. Does it do anything to address all the goose crap that goes into this thing? Because there's thousands of those things that.
That's what causes it.
No, not necessarily. I mean,
That's what
yeah,
they
it's
say.
cultural eutrophication does, but I'm saying, they're also saying this plant comes from people with boats and putting boats from another location into Dara Pond. They're saying that's how this is transmitted.
Yeah, so this type of milfoil is, as I understand, is actually a local native type aquatic weed, and not the real invasive milfoil one that's being transported around by boats, propellers and stuff. But the problem is, I think you got the geese coming in, they're transporting seeds, and so everything in the report had indicated to me that it's a different type of milfoil, but it still has an effect on the water quality of the lake, and that would be treated chemically the first year and the second year, and then after that, I think it's very based on the assessment. You go out in certain areas and you do a very limited treatment. So that would be the maintenance mode that you're in.
I mean, there could be a year or two where there's no treatment required.
It could be.
Right? So if we look back at past history. I remember passing funds for this treatment, 4 or 5 years ago. It went through a cycle of a couple year treatment and then a couple years off, and now it's back. You know what
We
I
didn't
mean?
finish that cycle.
Oh, yeah, what is the goal of this? Is it to make
Right.
Dare Pond swimmable? Or,
I think the goal in talking with recreation and conservation, this is actually, this article came forward from the Rec Commission. The Conservation Commission is obviously interested in it, but they don't manage this pond. So their goal is to keep it a good quality recreational pond for fishing. A lot of people use it for fishing. You can swim in it, and you can bring your dog down there. It's just to make sure we preserve this asset as a place that you can recreate.
Is this the milfoil that's close to the shore?
So yeah, it's shallow. It looks like the treatment's going to be about 4 acres, and the pond itself is 12 acres. And the treatment area looks like, you're right, it seems to be around the perimeter of the shoreline.
Is there any other way to treat it? Let's say dumping sand or anything on top of it, would that kill it?
Only things, little bit that I've heard from watching other towns treat different ponds and stuff, there's some hand pulling techniques and,
Yeah, some individual harvesting or whatever.
yeah.
I mean, my concern is the herbicide that would be used, the impact on the water supply, other vegetation, wildlife, humans swimming,
Right.
and how long it lasts, what's the half-life of that?
All I know is that if you're doing a treatment, there would be a restriction that the water, no swimming for 24 hours, and a restriction on irrigation, which didn't specify a number of hours, but I'm assuming it's 24.
So getting into the groundwater, any discussions on that? Anything the voters should be aware of?
No, all I can tell you is that you have to prepare and submit an application to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. They review it. They, as of right now, they approve the chemical that's going to be used, and that's their preferred treatment. And that's all I know.
You're up to speed on milfoil. Thank you.
Any other questions relative to Article 8? Article 9, Old Town Hall paint. Any questions?
Yeah, and this was raised by, I think, a couple of posts that I saw, right, when this was presented as an article under consideration, right? Has the board considered doing vinyl siding to the building? Are we only considering painting and replacing clapboards as needed? Are there any other options for this building?
Because of its historical significance, no, we didn't consider vinyl siding. That kind of ruins it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that you vinyl side the building. It's a historical building, and so the effort here is to make sure we preserve the building, replace any of the damaged clapboards, shutters, trim work, and keep it in keeping with its architectural features.
Would we be doing standard paint or that paint that
Ceramic
lasts
paint.
forever?
Rhino one.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm just thinking
This
life
price-
cycle. I know how
this-
frequently I have to
This
paint my
price
house.
right here is a traditional, scrape
Mhm.
and paint.
Right. Okay. I was consider. I know how frequently I have to paint my clapboards. I'm just wondered if there's been a thought to the analysis of whether or not over the long term it would save money if we went with the better stuff.
No, the Rhino Shield won't do anything more than standard paint on this. Okay. The building is poorly insulated, so a product like Rhino Shield will end up coming off. The best way to do it is to use a waterborne product, which has flexibility. Which can withstand the, yeah. And this price is for a prime and two coats of finish paint.
Okay. Well, I would defer to your expertise.
I prepared it for him, so. But I stepped aside from doing it because I didn't want to have an appearance of a conflict of interest.
No, absolutely, but I appreciate the insight because that's, like I said, I'm just thinking of,
So is it a fair number?
It is a very fair number, actually.
Did you mention last time you presented this that it possibly could be 20,000? That there was an additional 5,000 put into it for,
I
Whatever's-
carried so I received a verbal quote
Mhm.
of, approximately $20,000, and I put it at 25,000. Make sure we had enough to cover the project.
I just start
I mean-
scraping and painting and uninsulated walls. all
You
of
know,
a
you,
sudden
you
drawing
do a
on the
visual look at the building, and but you start getting into, you get up there on a ladder, and you start seeing some clapboard damage, or you see this damage, and things, you get some escalating costs.
so we don't have 3 quotes and all of that. It's just a verbal quote.
No, typically what I would do is, if this article passes, then we'll put it out to bid at that point in time.
It's a budget quote.
But I
Maybe he'll
think
come in
not
under.
To split hairs, but that's, because I recall that conversation as well. I'm the one who asked the question. It's a 25% increase over the quote.
Yeah, I mean, the quote, again, it's a verbal quote.
It was a generic quote. I gave him a bottom line of 20,000 to a maximum line of 25,000.
And just to verify, you can't tell rotten wooden windows and board until you really start stripping it. A little.
Yeah, you have to be really careful because the building is lead. So you can't power wash it. So that's usually how I tell when something
Yeah,
is
that's what I
rotted.
assume that's what they would do. But
So you have to actually get up there and start scraping.
Physically.
And you won't know until you get up there and start scraping it.
Mine's not lead and I still feel that's the case. Oh. Any other questions relative to Article 9? Article 10, plow truck purchase. Any questions relative to that one?
how imperative is this for the plow truck versus the communications? You got $100,000 for this plow truck that's coming from the money you already have. You could put that into communications. Is this plow truck an absolute necessity? Do we not have
Yeah,
another
the plow
year?
truck's a very, very high priority for the highway department. This truck is going to be a different truck than we currently run. So it's going to be a medium heavy duty truck. So it's not going to be the heavy duty one that you see, your traditional New England plow truck, right? The DOT trucks. And this is not going to be a landscaper truck. It's going to be right there in the middle. It's still going to have a front plow, and it's going to have a wing, and it'll have the salter. Because of its weight, you will not have a requirement for the commercial driver's license. So it's going to open up the opportunity for us to be able to recruit, drivers for the truck, utilize some of the staff that we currently have that currently don't have their CDL. And to be frank with you, we're really looking forward to this truck being sort of a workhorse in all of our cul-de-sacs because it's going to be smaller than the big trucks. But as you've seen, some of the snowstorms we've been plowing, the pickup trucks and landscaper trucks, they're good, they're quick, they get around, they keep things open, but they don't have the wing. And the wing is so critical when you're going around cul-de-sacs and just going down, making that first path. Because once you angle the plow, if you have an 8-foot plow, you're only plowing about 6 feet. When you go around a cul-de-sac, now you're not even clearing 6 feet.
Explains why it's
That's why
been
you
so
need the
narrow.
wing.
Yeah, which
I was
way
like-
So,
you go around the
and our trucks are old. We only have 2 of the big trucks, and one of those is a 2010. We still consider that a new truck. And even our smaller 1-ton and the 1-ton is showing its age. It's critical. And this is important for us to get this truck. We really hopeful that this is going to be the vehicle of choice that we're going forward with. There'll be more truck requests coming in the future. I mean, I know the comments about, can you put all, the hard thing is here, we're trying to look at all departments, all needs, and it's hard to pick and choose. When I knew we were over the tax cap, we took a look at well, can we defer more of the $200,000? You know, just eliminate these warrant articles. Let's put $200,000 down on the radio equipment. And, you know, that does reduce the payments over the 5-year period, but then you're losing ground on all this other stuff. And then that stuff's going to catch up and get you. And so I just think, you know, what the selectman has done here is laid out a plan that addresses the priority needs as a whole package. These needs aren't going to go away. When the CIP project starts, you're going to start hearing a lot of conversation about needs in all departments, and I'm sure on the school side.
Big matrix. Number of trucks, years. Because if we're going to start seeing more for trucks, like kind of, as a voter, I would want to say, okay, are we looking at a truck every year for 5 years and then we're done for 5 years? Or
Then
is
you
this-
get in, yeah, I mean, that's what.
So I'm saying, I
That's
wanna
what your
make sure-
CIP plan does. So don't
That's
just
what I'm
think that
hoping for.
don't think that the $180,000 front end loader,
Mhm.
you know, that's just going to keep running.
Right.
At some point in time, you're going to hit that point where, you know, you trade that in and you get into it. It doesn't stop.
So the
You
goal.
run a highway department, a fire department, police department. Equipment is always going to be needed.
So the goal then from the town side is this equipment will get us to when you have that plan developed. Like we need this now. The rest of it's going to be included in that plan. Are there any other questions relative to Article 10?
This will carry salt too. This
It will.
be- Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It will have a sand salt spreader in the body.
You should have the weight to really do a good job.
Yeah, it'll be dual axle.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be the gross vehicle waste just gonna be under 26,000 pounds.
So turning the page to Article 11. So could you remind me where we are right now in this fund? We just used some of it, didn't we?
So the fund right now is, because we haven't paid for the heating system at Talon Hall, it's just over 50,000, but the heating system that we will be paying for in a couple weeks, I think the bill was like 41,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the intent is to replenish what we've.
So that's why we're trying to replace this, yeah.
Are there any other questions relative to Article 11? Article 12?
Replenishing the storage array that was purchased, right?
Yeah, this was, we took out of the proposed budget. We tapped into this fund, which was just created last year, and now we're trying to replenish those funds.
All right, then there are no costs associated with Article 13. Article 14, I don't know that we need to vote on it, but is there a way to identify what the differences are? Like if I'm looking at this as a voter, I don't know how to compare that to the existing one.
So in our voter guide and any information that we put out through, between now and election time, we'll be able to provide that information,
Right.
but we cannot add any information to a petition warrant.
Yeah, I was just thinking a nice simple chart then in that proposed, or now in proposed. Because I, as a voter, would have no idea whether I'm increasing, decreasing, or what the differences are. Excellent. All right. So we can get down to the actual budget itself, because that we have not locked in yet. Because where we vote, unless you want to do the warrant articles first, does the committee have a preference as to whether you would like to vote operating budget or warrant articles first?
I think we should vote warrant articles first, because if we're going to be adding anything back in based on the requests made, we'll have
Excellent.
an idea as to.
What we have left? Sounds good to me. Alrighty, so the first one we would weigh in on then, well, we'll come back to Article 2. And then we'll straight to Article 3. The full-time, I'm sorry? Full-time highway employee. So, yep. And the estimated tax impact is relative to the 1/2 of the year. So the next year would be 8 cents, correct?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 3, full-time highway employee.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, made and seconded. Any discussion in addition to what we've already had? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of recommending Article 3, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
And those who abstain? All right. I'm sorry, was it 6-2 or 7-2? All right. Public Safety Communication Systems Purchase, Article 4.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 4, Public Safety Communication System, lease purchase.
I will second that.
All right. All right, so right now we're voting on the article as written because we cannot currently amend it.
Correct.
So as written,
That's with the payment of 151 on.
well, I would hope,
I
well,
can't
as,
change that.
No, I know that, but so if
My-
we're voting for it, we're voting for it as it sits right here, not as it is on there, right?
well, it's zero impact currently. Yes.
Correct. So if you vote no to this, it doesn't necessarily mean you disagree with the need.
Right.
You disagree with how it's written.
Exactly.
Correct.
So my only change to how it's written would be to, again, the tax impact estimated. So that at the end of the 2025, people can say, oh, it cost me 75 cents or 25 cents. And you can do a quick calculation.
And I think we may have done that for the
I think we did
the
too.
fire station bond.
And that will be on there, Troy?
Yeah.
Yeah. In my view, right, in terms of the comment being transparent, I think it's fairly well written. I'm very supportive of adding the tax percentage rates as we've talked about. I also think it says it in bold, it says in arrears, right? And so I think that means to most voters, right, that it's a delayed payment to the following year. So again, I can't dispute or debate the Board of Selectmen's decision here. You know, I'm balancing the needs from what our IT manager has mentioned tonight and the criticality and the importance of this equipment to support the town needs.
I would go, I'm not saying that I do support, I think you're right. The town does need it. However, I don't like how it's written. I think it's, I'm sorry if you think sneaky is a bad way to put it. I don't like how it's kind of slid in there like that. I just don't like it. So that's why I vote no.
Any other comments? We had made and seconded. So all those in favor of recommending Article 4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain.
So Madam Chairman, just on that, I would ask that at the budget hearing, if potentially deliberative, when we present our budget recommendations, that we make it just clear that some committee members support the article, do not support how it's presented to the town.
Okay, so the opposition is not to the idea, but to the method of payment.
Should we also put on there because it's costing people an extra $20,000?
Let's see. It's interest rate.
Looks like the interest rate is about 3.127. Does that sound right? You said $1 buyout, I think, before,
Yeah, it's probably right around there. I guess.
which is a
I
good
have,
rate. It's a good rate for a deferred lease.
let me see here, on the warrant article, I do have a quote. If you open up the warrant, let me see, I'll open it up. Hang on. So for the 5, this one, advance in arrears, 5 years and 2.67%.
That would be a 5-year, but on a
Oh.
6-year, you've got 12 months. of
Well, I
deferred.
know, but it's quoted as a 5-year, but it's in arrears. So
Right, so,
I say it's really 6 years, but it's financed for 5 years at 2.6.
so that makes it
Because you're accruing
3.127%.
interest this year, yeah.
The original 5-year would have been the 2 point.
And what was the rate on the fire station?
What's that?
How does it compare to the rate we got on the fire station?
We were, I don't remember either, but we were right around 3% or a little less.
And that was a longer term, so that's actually
That's a
pretty good,
15-year lease, right?
which usually have a lower rate, so that's,
Not a lease, a bond.
yeah. All right, so conversation there, so
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Clarification. This doesn't include the school district, though. This cost, the 700, that doesn't include the equipment for the school district, or it does?
What it doesn't include is the subscribers, so. handhelds.
Your walkie-talkies, your.
Okay, but it includes the tower.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
no, that's factored into it. Unless you make me move it someplace else.
There you go, absorb some of it on that budget, right? All right, so we voted that. Article 5, library earned time accrual.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 5, library
Second.
earned time accrual.
Nicole seconded. Any discussion relative to this article? Hearing none, all those in favor of recommending Article 5, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain. So 8-1. Nicole. you can- All right, turning the page to Article 6. Health and Human Services, health services and health agencies.
Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion, we'll see how this goes. I would like to make a motion to reduce vendor payments in the town budget by $4,000.
Should we do that here or should we do that in the town budget?
That's Article 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, I mixed them up. My apology.
Right, we're on Article 6.
Yeah, Article 6, I was jumped ahead there.
All right,
So I'll make a motion
so I'll think
to
about how to
to
do this.
approve human services and health agencies for $15,000.
Is there a second? I will second. Discussion? Come on, you have it. I see you want to say something. Go for it. Too much, too little? No? Okay. All those in favor of
I've made my feelings known to the Board of Selectmen.
Now you're leaving me hanging. Go ahead. Please share. Unless you don't want to, that's fine too.
No, I mean, I think there were over $30,000 in requests and the voters approved 25. I think that's a better number,
So,
but and then the committee
Mhm.
decided what they decided and
so stepping outside of here, one thing you could do if you feel passionate, at deliberative, make a motion to increase the number. So.
I'm thinking about it.
All right, so I'm just saying, it doesn't die here, and just, all right, all those in favor of recommending Article 6, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain. 8-1. Article 7,
Okay, Madam Chairman. I'll make a motion to reduce the budget, the town budget vendor payments by $4,000. And in doing so, I'll then make a motion to approve the Article 7 as written.
So it's a contingent.
I'll second it for discussion, 'cause
Like I said, we'll see how this goes.
I like the idea, but
So just from a point of clarification, can we do what you're proposing right now? Can we?
we haven't locked down the town budget yet.
We can make motions on the town budget.
I don't feel like it's right to make one contingent upon the other. I think we should handle them separately. So I'd like to amend your motion to reduce $4,000 to vendor payments
And leave it as is. Okay.
and then vote on the warrant article separately.
Ooh, I like, that gets the same effect, but I like that.
So two separate motions, same outcome.
So I can withdraw my motion. If you withdraw your motion. I like, see,
I
it
second.
achieves the same goal without having to make,
I'll second Mrs. Burke's motion.
to reduce this Article 7.
Specifically for the $4,000 reduction of vendor payments.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, I'm confused.
All right, so
What, Jen, did you make a motion to amend the motion to reduce it from the article? Okay. To leave the article the
We're
way
not
it
talking about the
is.
article yet.
I'm not talking about the article. I'm saying operating budget reduction of $4,000 vendor payments.
So right now in the operating budget, there's
Yep.
$4,000. What we're doing is talking about taking that out
Right.
as one motion.
Right.
And then another motion will be Article 7.
no, she didn't like.
Yes.
we-
Act on
yes,
one motion.
okay.
Just act on the one motion you have.
Yeah.
$4,000 reduction to the operating budget vendor payments.
Yep.
What was your motion?
That was Jen's motion. I just seconded it.
All right.
But you already made that motion.
No.
Oh, you said
Mine was-
contingent on
mine was
something
contingent.
I
else?
think it's.
It's the
I see.
same.
I get it. All
It's the
right.
same outcome.
Wait.
Different.
I
method of
normally
getting it.
wouldn't write a motion like that with a contingency. That's why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
So then your proposal is to take it out of the operating budget and to leave the warrant article the way it is.
Nope,
Jeez.
my motion is just to take it out of the operating budget. I'm not discussing Article 7. I'm just saying
One's not
removing it
contingent
from
on the other.
the operating budget.
So if we take the 4,000 out of the operating budget and this fails, what does that mean?
It's a good question.
You've got to find it somewhere
We
else.
have to find it somewhere else.
Or I can make a motion to add it back in.
Well, but hold on, because the question that Mr. Leary's asking is important. It can fail here and still pass by the voters.
Sure.
What happens if it fails by the voters? Then the town does have to find that additional money.
Correct.
But that's like
Either
anything.
way, making it contingent, I think, is
See,
muddying the waters.
to me, I think the cleanest way is to reduce the warrant article amount by 4,000, and that way you have the 4 in the budget.
It's
You
not a
had.
motion on the table.
I know it's not, and I appreciate that. I'm trying to explain what okay, so I would hate to do it, but I have to vote no on that one because I don't think that's the.
Plus, I don't think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, are we allowed to make motions to the actual number in the warrant
No.
article?
Could be 10,
No, you
no, but we
cannot.
can, at
At
deliberative.
deliberative,
At
At
deliberative, you
yes,
can.
But as a
But not
committee
here.
right now, we
Right.
cannot.
No,
do
you
that.
can't. In years past, the budget committee has either recommended or not recommended articles and then gone back
Right.
with that amount and started to cut from the operating budget. And I think it was a cleaner process than these two motions. This
Right.
is very confusing. Just saying.
The motion on the table is to remove vendor payments from the operating budget. That's where we're at. Correct? All right. Are there any additional comments? We have a motion and a second.
Just a point of where and obviously what has been requested and paid out this year is not necessarily indicative of next year, but we had it at 4 and we almost reached 4, didn't we?
Which is why I like yeah. All right.
So there is need in
I'm
town.
not debating the need,
Right. It's just how to quantify it.
how we're gonna pay for it.
All those in favor?
I mean, I
Oh, I know,
would
I'm
say to
trying- I'm
keep
trying
an
to figure out my
amount in the
vote.
budget that is
In principle-
reflective of
Budget
what's
versus on
actually.
article.
So right now, the vote is to remove vendor payments of $4,000 from the operating budget, leaving the warrant article alone. And based on my statement that says that if I have to be consistent with my previous statement and vote in favor of this. So, all right, all those in favor of the proposal on the table, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
And abstain. So it passes 6-3.
Make a motion to approve Article 7 as written.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any additional discussion relative to Article 7? All those in favor of recommending Article 7, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain. 8-1.
Now, that also changes the tax cap and it increases
It
it
does.
4,000.
Helps it.
Which makes room for.
You just
any
washed it. You
additional-
just took out 4 and kept in 4, right? So it's a wash.
No,
No,
no, they didn't
No,
add
it's an increase of
4 to this
4,000 to the
article.
tax
They
cap.
just reduced the operating budget by 4,000.
Oh, okay.
And we will champion the cause. All right. So it brings us to Article 8. Article 8, the milfoil.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 8 as written.
Second? Is there a second? I will second.
I have a question, just because I want to vote for this, Troy, but it would drive me crazy 3 years from now as a voter if we did 3 years of treatment and then dropped it in the milfoil, came back and we're at the same spot again in 6 years.
That's where I feel like we're at now.
That's my concern is we did it for 2 years, then we stopped, and I just
If this program is approved by the voters, everyone needs to understand that there should be an expectation that there will be an ongoing maintenance cost. Now, that maintenance cost could consist of just hiring this company that goes out, they do their assessment, they come back and they say, everything looks great. We'll come back next year and take another look. You don't need to do anything.
I guess my big
Or they may
concern-
say, you probably need to do $3,000 worth of whatever here and there.
and the selectmen, and I hate to ask this isn't knock it out because you need $20,000 somewhere else in 3 years. That, it's just my concern is we spend the money, then stop doing it 3 years. To me, this has got to be a commitment.
It's more of an operating budget
Yeah.
conversation.
I really would feel comfortable.
I
that
think
way.
this gets the project to the point where then it's maintenance. And there will be a line item in the rec budget, I'm sure, for ongoing maintenance.
'Cause I don't know if
What
I'm
that cost is and what on an annual,
just to say, I'm sure Robert's the same way. I've been here long enough to remember my kids swam in that back in the late 90s. And it was a great little place. I don't think I'd want them swimming in there right now.
I swam there last year.
Did you?
Right.
Well,
But
but
I-
something, is this, do they guarantee this place is gonna be swimmable?
And I did.
I don't know if they can do that.
you can,
but-
you
Yeah,
can
they
swim in
saying
that,
by doing,
you can swim in
it's
the pond
pretty,
too.
well, it's pretty disgusting.
Well, it's just the milfoils. I think,
It's not just
Doesn't
the
it need to be
milfoil, it's
close?
the massive amounts of.
well, no, the milfoil needs to be close.
Well,
to
let's
the
take
surface.
30 grand and build a swimming pool.
I don't think he'll get very far.
Are you saying if you put
Splash pad
30
didn't
grand
go
in
very
this,
far either.
your kids are gonna be able to swim in this? Because I don't know who would actually let their kids swim in this right now, but I mean, is that what they're saying? Are they giving that kind of, is there any kind
You
of
can-
guarantee
you
for
can
this?
you
or-
can-
Swim in it now.
You can swim in Dara Pond today.
Might be frozen.
Until
We hope, we hope
Polar bear
This-
plunge.
this treatment
I appreciate the levity.
is going to add,
Oh, that was good.
I think add a little more life to the pond.
Any additional questions? All right, so all those in favor of voting to recommend Article 8, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 5, 4.
Recommend.
So when I pull this together, out of curiosity, is it the amount, the lack of ongoing maintenance? Well, how would you like me to, or would you like to explain your votes yourself?
I mean, I feel like at the hearing and in deliberative,
Okay.
the public is welcome to ask us how we voted and why we voted, but, and I don't know if it's fair, because we might all have
Alright.
individual.
I just want
It's not as clear cut as the,
okay,
I mean, Brian and I on 4, we're pretty clear cut, it's how it's written. I think there's a lot of variables to this one, I
perfect.
think.
All right, that's fine. I'll just note the vote and have it. All right. All right, Article 9.
Madam Chair, I'm going to make a motion to approve Article 9 as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jen seconded. Any additional discussion relative to Article 9?
My only point, right, is I understand the architecture of the building, right, and maintaining its historical, perspective and value to our town. It would just be nice if it was kind of a longer term focused thing, because, painting is in every couple year, in terms of preventative maintenance, right? It's in every few year thing, right? So there's got to be a better way to do it.
Not necessarily. I mean, if you get it covered well, you could get 8 to 10 years out of it easily. You could,
If the right painter did it, right?
I don't know where he is.
I just know how often I'm repainting my clapboard, and I don't get 8 to 10 years.
I don't
out
get
of it.
into, yeah, exactly.
The thing-
Especially on the southern exposure.
It's a lighter colored building, which doesn't tend to absorb the heat from the sun, which helps its lifespan. Okay. I think if it's done properly, you should be able to get 8 to 10 years out of it.
Thank you.
I did the Nashua Historical Society's building 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and there's many areas of there that we haven't had to touch because it's been okay. So it's all about prep and getting the right product.
Thank you.
Getting the right contractor.
That's what I'm thinking.
You gotta find them.
All right, all those in favor of voting to recommend Article 9, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain. Is that 6-3?
6:30.
I need to take a moment here. This is a biggie. Article 10, plow truck purchase.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve Article 10 as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Nikki, go ahead.
Second, third over there. Discussion?
This is a critical need for our highway department in maintaining the roads and the assets. I mean, I know there's discussion about, can we better use this funds for the communication equipment? I understand and agree with you, but it doesn't take away the needs also from the highway department.
And also the attempted shift away from the CDLs to something that will hopefully open access to more people who can potentially drive it. So,
So can I ask a question? Aren't the articles in priority order?
No,
No,
Okay.
school side.
the school is because they have a limited amount of money left over at the end of the year, but they have a very healthy fund balance, so they could fund them all and not.
Okay. I just, because my question.
So
was,
in
if they-
theory, yes, if there weren't enough money, but there is enough money.
No, my question was if they were, then why would the painting town hall be a priority over the
Gotcha.
contract purchase? But
Yeah.
That is null and void.
All right. So all those who would like to vote in favor of recommending Article 10, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
7-2. Flip the page. All right, that brings us to Article 11.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve Article 11 as written.
Is there a second? I will second it. Any discussion other than what we've already had, or in addition to, or repeating? Feel free. All right, all those in favor of voting to recommend Article 11, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 9-0. Abstain? Nope, okay, 9-0.
was there, it was 9-0?
I believe
9-0.
so.
9-0. Yeah.
Article 12,
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 12 as written.
is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any additional discussion relative to Article 12?
Yeah, is there any reason this isn't combined with the other one? Communications? Isn't it kind of all the same thing or no?
Well, I couldn't, we've created these funds separately under separate warrant articles.
Does Mr. Brunel have a,
Right?
If you're gonna put 700 grand into the communications, this is part of communications. So when you put the money into the communications or, no?
what's your thought, Mr. Brunel?
With regard to putting the 700K into the fund?
No,
No.
so they're debating Article 12 versus the other article for the communications equipment, right?
Yeah.
Article 12 is replenishing funds that you're using that you use for the array.
Right,
It
so,
would be,
yeah, that fund is there to take care of the technology that's already existing today. I mean, your argument could be, oh, we'll put 700,000 there and use that fund to fund that. But we have a project that's scoped and cost.
No, I was under the impression that they're kind of the same thing, but I guess they're
no,
not. So-
no, this
No,
is,
I get what you're saying now.
So
So
no.
yeah, it's computers, servers, and communication equipment, radios, everything.
Okay.
So it's our technology. Just like your buildings, if the buildings have a failure, technology can have a failure.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of voting to recommend Article 12, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 9-0. We do not need to vote on Article 13 or 14. So that brings us back to the operating budget. So two outstanding items before we get into everybody else's would be the library's request and the conservation committee's request.
The library is requesting,
An additional $1,246 to fund their health insurance buyout since they calculated it using 2018 insurance numbers instead of 2019.
I'll make a motion to add $1,246 to the library insurance, blah, blah, blah.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, made and seconded. Additional discussion? All right. Hearing none.
That was, sorry, 1262. I'm just making sure. I get
1246.
1246. Thank you.
Fair number.
What was the, I had 1,296. What,
I have 1246. Did I met
Hold on,
wrong?
let's go to library sheet here.
She has
like
two
three
s-
different numbers.
she had a couple different numbers through email exchanges, but
So
the
I,
spreadsheets she sent.
1,296 is what's in the spreadsheet.
okay,
I'll amend my motion.
then.
Sorry.
And the second, 1,296.
Alright.
Andrew, did you second?
Yes, and I amended the
All right.
second.
This new number would be.
So all those in favor of amending the original motion to 12-1296, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so to cross our T's and dot our I's, we now bring the motion to 1296, which I will do this.
Yeah.
So all those in favor of adding $1,296 to the library proposed budget, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Did you just do that motion?
No, we had to amend it because the original proposal was 1246. We're
Yes.
crossing our Ts and dotting our Is.
So those are 900.
So yes, we voted on the same number twice, but that's because I gave Jen the wrong number. So
Gotcha.
And now conservation.
So what does the Conservation Committee want?
well, they wanted us to consider reinstating their $2,000 request. They sent a list of equipment that totals $962, but does not include repairs to existing equipment.
I had an
How
open
much is
question. Sorry, I'm sorry.
How much is in their fund?
So let me go there.
I thought it was over half a mil.
It's-
It's
yeah,
over
it's
half
over.
a mil.
It's over $550,000.
I found it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to make
I
a
know.
motion.
So I'm bringing it forward because they've requested it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I'm just explaining why
Right.
I'm not.
No, and I
Fine.
I agree. I believe that the taxpayers have weighed in and said you have a healthy fund and we'd like you to use that. I understand the Conservation Commission's reluctance to use those funds, but I think that the taxpayers have been asked and weighed in. So we'll make sure it's all there.
An open question,
Yes?
right? The open question at the last meeting was where are they going to store new equipment?
Right, so I consulted with them and a couple different responses. They do have a shed here behind the police department, so they use that for storage. They use the town office, the conservation office, planning office, and also with the new
To keep chainsaws?
storage available. What's that?
To keep chainsaws?
That would be in the shed,
Okay.
or really what they'd be looking at for like some of this equipment, maybe down at the old fire station.
Got it. Okay.
All right. So I will make the motion because it warrants due consideration. So I will make a motion to reinstate the $2,000 for the Conservation Commission. What was it? Line 430, property management.
I'll second it for discussion.
Second for discussion. I think I understand their concerns. I appreciate their desire. I think there's an ability to fund that without going to the taxpayers. But I will please.
I think it's if they have $550,000 in their budget or in the amount of money they have, $2,000 is not going to affect whether or not they want to buy a tract of land or not. It's negligible for that kind of money. So I don't think, no, absolutely not.
I agree.
I think too in this community, and if they put a request out, a list of items, you never know what they might be able to accumulate anyway.
Okay.
So there are opportunities
I'll
to
ask.
obtain this equipment, even if they're concerned about tapping into their fund. Again, I
Oh, it was
understand and
fine.
appreciate.
I would welcome them to contact.
Second for discussion.
So again, I think that our community is very generous. Yeah, exactly. People, snowbirds who are just planning to offload some stuff. I think there's an opportunity to accumulate this much needed equipment in a creative way. But the motion's out there. All those in favor of reinstating or adding $2,000 to line 430 of the Conservation Commission, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed? Aye. Abstain. So I'm sorry, guys.
Can I just say, it's not that I don't think they warrant the equipment either.
Agreed.
It's the fact that
Mhm.
they have the money already.
Well, I think too, there's also, I think with some creative asking, we might be able to get it anyway.
So,
Some donations and perhaps talking to the Board of
Madam
Selectmen.
Chairman, are we voting on the,
Let's move into the budget now.
so the budget with our amended motions this evening,
Mhm.
using my back of the napkin math here, it would change the total, right, where it says
Oh.
7,067,631.
Yep.
Our motions have taken that down to 7,064,927.
So where are we within the tax fund?
We are 4,000, well, about 3,000 or so higher than what Troy presented, so we're about 5,000 under the tax cap.
Yeah, you're $5,325 below tax cap.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to
Right.
approve the operating budget with the? current-
7,064,927.
Sure, that one.
Gonna be exact.
And so that's with taking out we reduced the vendor payments by 4,000, but then
And
we
then added
added
1296.
to the library appropriation.
All right, all those, you
there-
seconded it, right? Or was there was a
Second.
motion? Andrew seconded it. Figured there must be one out there.
There's a couple.
All right, any additional discussion? Anything people wanted to address before we?
What was, Andrew, the amount doesn't have to be 7,160,000 would, or is it for the 7,064,000?
No.
7,064,927.
So the operating.
But the operating, we don't include the warrants, correct?
This is Article 2.
Article,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Did you second that? Are we
Yes.
voting solely on the budget versus
So you haven't
communications
picked the
thing? Is that
ones yet.
communications? way
The
they-
communications-
That's already.
That's a warrant article.
That's a warrant article, that's separate. So this
Right.
is the budget that we presented.
So is there any additional discussion before we vote? Anything that people want considered or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of voting to recommend a budget of 7,064,927, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. So the vote to recommend the budget is 8-1. Let's see. It's pretty close to the So are there any other items relative? We're good, right? Anything, until the budget hearing, which I'll be in touch with you because we need to put together those fancy slides.
So, yeah, I work with the chair, Michelle, preparing for
The budget
the
hearing.
budget hearings. Michelle has reserved all the facilities at the school for your
She's the
budget hearing,
best.
Thank you.
and deliberative sessions.
Yes, thank you.
And in close, I just want to thank the budget committee. I think it's been a really good process this year. I've really enjoyed the process, and I want to thank you for your professionalism and respect for our staff, myself, for Karen. It's been a good process.
We started off rough.
We had a great process this year. Really,
I'm glad we finished strong though, and
yeah, that was good.
I think offering the tours was huge. It was very informative and very important, but especially in advance of the budget.
So, okay, good night. Thank you.
Have a happy new year.
Happy
Thank you
New
so much,
Year.
everybody. All right, member input. We started over there last time. We'll start over here this time.
No comments from my side.
All good.
Okay. All set?
I want to talk for like the next hour.
Sure, I'll be more than happy to listen.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Is it? I skipped public input. Hold on. In case anybody is in the hallway, anybody interested? All right. Now you may.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ready to say all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We will see you next Thursday, January 9th, when we will look at the school budget.
I mean, they weigh on the tax cap. How much you recommend?